Hey, welcome to this webinar today. Now, whether you are live or viewing this as a recording later on, I will be discussing some of our learnings with regard to applying neuroscience, or what many people call neuromarketing, as an enabler for the greater good. That is, a greater good providing insights for renovations of existing products or innovation of new products or services and goods and services. So I'm really excited about this today. We're going to be addressing a topic of neuromarketing, which is clearly a buzzword in the industry. And but I believe that neuromarketing techniques to this point haven't really fully come to the fruition of achieving their promise. I remember 10 years ago when we started hearing about neuromarketing and get really excited about it. But we've been working on it for some time at Insights Now, and is clearly becoming a major part of what we do every day. So what I'm going to do today is clear up some of the confusion around what is neuromarketing. What are some of the most applicable neuromarketing techniques that are out there and the ones that we're using? I'm going to offer some perspectives on the values and some shortcomings in application of these techniques. And last, I'm going to be presenting some improvements that we have found and we've applied in Insights Now to enable innovation for the greater good. And what I mean by that is creating a cleaner, healthier, happier world. So with that, we're going to be making this a very interactive sort of session today. What I'm going to do is give you a lot of opportunity to chat, to ask questions through this sort of app that you have along with the webinars now. And I'll answer these questions that you have live, as I'm doing right now on the screen. I'm going to present the content today in 5 short video clips. And these clips were part of what I presented a few weeks ago at Quirk's Live event. And but I'm going to make it very interactive today. Well, I'll stop after each of these clips are 3 to 5 minutes long or so. And I will ask you, a couple things. First of all, does this make sense? And if you can say yes or no in this text box, this question, send it back to me. If it's no, if you can just type in what is your confusion or whatever, what I said, and I'll clarify as best I can. And if you have commentary on the content that just completed, you're welcome to type that in. And if we have time, I'll read your commentary and we can go from there. So let's test this out right now. Does this make sense? Can you guys, just type it in and let's see if it's working, and we'll go from there. Great. I'm getting some comments here. Super. All right, makes sense. So let's get started on the content here. I'm sure that if I asked for a show of hands, that everybody here would respond positively, that they would want to live in a cleaner, healthier, happier world. Today, what I'm going to do is draw a line between neuromarketing techniques being an enabler of marketing research and innovation for the greater good. And that is to create a cleaner, healthier, happier world. As many as you know, consumers and shoppers are really poor at telling you what they want. But if you showed them something, they would instantly be able to recognize it, whether or not they wanted it or not. So
there lies the conundrum of innovation. Now, neuromarketing is clearly a buzzword, and neuromarketing techniques have not really come to the full fruition in sort of achieving their promise. In fact, there's a lot of confusion about them. So what I'm going to do today is provide some clarity in this confusion about what is neuromarketing and the techniques. I'm going to talk about some of those techniques. I'm going to talk to you about some of the values and shortcomings of some of these techniques. And last, I'll be presenting a way that we can improve upon some of these techniques through developing some neuromarketing techniques to enable innovation to achieve a cleaner, healthier, happier world. You know, if you think about it, all innovation decisions have their roots in trying to figure out how to nudge and disrupt consumers or shoppers in some way. And for this reason, neuromarketing is an exciting branch of marketing and consumer research. It provides a significant expansion of the researcher's toolbox, enabling for deeper and broader insights for more informed decisions and how to nudge and disrupt. And it is based on the science of human behavior. And this applied sort of area offers a new lens to insights professionals to frame business decisions with respect to questions about the whys of consumer behavior. So, as you know, good research does start with asking the right questions. So if you're an innovator working at the fuzzy front end, or you're a product marketer interested in how to nudge and disrupt through trying different types of marketing techniques, or you're a product developer trying to figure out how to build into products signals that tell the consumer or the shopper that this product will in fact deliver on the promise of the brand, any of these areas, then neuromarketing techniques are really the type of techniques that can get you to those right answers and questions. Now, one of the ways that neuromarketing works is it distills the science of consumer behavior into things called frameworks. And frameworks are ways which us as practitioners can really understand how to ask the right questions, how to design neuromarketing techniques into our research. One of these frameworks that I want to talk to you today about is called the Modes of Thinking Framework. And it characterizes these modes in terms of how people think to make decisions. And there's three types of ways that behavioral psychologists have been able to figure out. The first is called implicit mode, or system one. And this is reserved for like fast sort of thinking, things that are mundane processes, things that are not important, things that are ordinary, things that are habitual in our lives. And it's reserved for that. It's based on priming of sensory cues and ways in which things that are really we're not thinking about. They're non-conscious techniques or ways of thinking that really drive about 95% of our decisions. Now, when we have been disrupted with something, so no longer are we in an ordinary moment, or something suddenly becomes much more important to our lives, then we move into system two, or an explicit mode of thinking. And this is reserved for things that are more rational, weighing the consequences of the outcomes of use of products and things like that. And so it's a much more mentally taxing, much more conscious thing that is reserved for those sort of other types of moments. Now, there's a third type of mode of thinking that behavioral psychologists are just starting to understand. And this is what we call prospective thinking. This sort of methodology is about projecting into the future, imagining what might be the outcome if you use a product, or might be the outcome if you talk to somebody, and what might be their reactions, what might be the outcome of a social event, and what you might do in that sort of situation. So prospective thinking is kind of a mix of system one and system two, because it also has emotional consequences and emotional things that drive decisions out of that mode.
Okay, so does this make sense? Is there any questions at this point on modes of thinking before we go on? Okay, it looks like so those of you that have just joined us, some you can see in the chat box. So if you think that this makes sense, type yes. If it doesn't, type no. And system 3 is different. Yeah, system 3 is, many people will think of it as an offshoot of system 2. And but it has to do with projection in a creative way to think about future outcomes from, and so the emotional tags are things such as hope, fear, intrigue, and things like that, versus in the experience type of emotion that we may have, or more things like I'm satisfied or whatever. So sounds like it makes sense. So let's go to the next clip here in this whole series.
Now, when you think about these modes, I'm going to talk today about two sort of basic classes of how people think and how neuromarketing techniques have been designed to tap into these modes of thinking. The first class is something called neurophysiological techniques. And for most researchers, when they think of neuromarketing, they think about brain scanning techniques. And these techniques measure the general brain activity or activities in specific centers of our brains through instruments such as EEG, fMRI, and PET. These techniques are really good at providing information about where and how neuroprocessing occurs, and they're really good for implicit, explicit, and prospective cognition. However, these techniques have a shortcoming in that they are mostly limited to in the laboratory situations. So you can't get out and utilize these in the true context of real consumer or shopper experiences. Now, the second is biometric techniques. And these are techniques that measure the autonomic nervous system via skin conductance and heart rates and breathing and things like that. These techniques are good at measuring arousal in response to product experiences and other sort of stimuli, which would indicate some sort of heightened alertness to various situations and stimuli. However, they're not able to measure valence. That means whether the reaction is positive or negative. Now, the third type of techniques has actually had a lot of application, and these are eye tracking and facial coding in combination with AI. In fact, with combination with AI, you're actually able to get now to understand appraisals and what the emotional impact, whether it's positive or negative, and in some cases with facial coding actually getting to specific types of emotions. So we are able to apply neuromarketing techniques to product innovation. If we're going to do this effectively, though, you need to go beyond these techniques. You need to be able to get into more the context of true consumer experiences. And to show what I mean, I'd like to introduce you to another behavioral framework, and this is called the behavioral pyramid. And on the left side of this pyramid, you'll see is layers of information that can be captured through research from shoppers or consumers that change the slowest at the bottom, like who they are, what lifestyle they are, and what their sort of personalities are, to things that ladder up to the top, things that change fastest in the different moments of people's lives. Now, on the right side of the pyramid is the same sort of layers of information for a research participant. And neuromarketing techniques that are most applicable to innovation are those that align the left side with the right side. So the left side, real experiences, with the right side, which are the participant experiences. And when they are aligned, you can have much more understanding of where the information that you're getting in terms of behavioral responses will be much more predictive and informative about true consumer behavior.
Okay, so clip 2. Any questions on neurophysiological techniques and or about the second framework, which is the behavioral framework, a behavioral pyramid, I'm sorry. Any questions? Does this make sense so far? Yes or no? Again, if you're just joining us, you can utilize this sort of chat window to type in. So I'm getting yeses from people here. I don't have any. Now, one question, are we able to distribute these slides to attendees? Contact me directly and I'll show you some how you get, and we can discuss that. So, all right, good. So doesn't seem to be seems to be a lot of clarity here on this. So let's go to the third clip here.
So, this next class of behavioral techniques are called prime target response techniques. And they get around this problem by making much more alignment between true experiences and participant experiences, because they're more flexible to place participants into these moments of experience. They also utilize something called priming, which is a very powerful sort of methodology to bring memories to the forefront so that the implicit, explicit, or prospective modes of thinking can access these memories in ways that your targets, or things that you're most interested in understanding the responses to, you can get more relevant research questions and answers to that. So there's 4 types of prime target response techniques that I want to explore with you today. The first is called fast direct, and this is the simplest of the 4. This technique, what you do is you provide a prime, some sort of information that brings memories to your forefront, such as thinking about getting ready to eat a ready-to-eat salad. And then you also provide to the respondent a target, such as plastic silverware that you want a response to, such as, is this important? And this technique, by having really fast yes-no answers, you can in rapid fashion provide a lot of different targets and get response information. So this fast direct techniques has a lot of applications in research. The second is called indirect priming. And this technique is really inventive. It has 2 primes, an initial prime, such as, in this example, a product experience someone just has, and then a second indirect prime, such as select a picture that kind of represents this experience you just had from a bunch of pictures. And then this second prime becomes a proxy to aid in the assessment of responses to one or more targets. So this technique works really well because cognitive scientists or behavioral scientists have found that indirect primes to be highly influential on more direct primes when they come in proximity to each other. So it's an ideal way to capture information such as, how does this make you feel? And so you can look at then a lot of different sort of words that describe that. The third type I want to talk about is called an implicit association test. This technique is operationally similar to fast direct, except that when participants are focused on assessing the primes, such as a product experience, they are actually assessing pairs of targets that you want to understand the association of the pair to the prime. So example, in assessing associations between 2 types of targets, such as perceived flavor attributes or perceived healthiness attributes, and you want to understand the relationships that a product experience gives you, what you can do then is you can present pairs of both the flavor combinations that you select from, or pairs of the healthiness qualities that people would select from, but also you pair the combinations of those. And you throw away the pairs about just the product experiences and what might be the benefits, you know, that you get. And what you do is you look at those combinations and look for the combinations that people respond quickest and most to in terms of to be able to express how the product experience made you feel. So it's a pretty inventive technique. The last is something called effect misattribution procedure. Now, this technique is different in two ways. First, with both the direct, fast direct, indirect priming, and implicit association techniques, you can actually capture how fast people responded. And this is an important piece of information to use because the faster gives you indication whether more people are using implicit thinking versus slower, rational sort of techniques like thinking like explicit. This technique is also different in that it uses two primes, where the first is a regular prime you're interested in, like a product experience or a concept or whatever, or a situational context, and the second is an ambiguous prime, like a weird character or something like that, so like I'm showing here on this slide. And these are shown in sequence, the two primes removed, and then the participant responds to the ambiguous primes with regard to some new targets in very rapid, fast succession. And the value of this technique is you start getting some very good information on sort of how the original prime really factors in to being pleasant or unpleasant, or okay or avoid, or some sort of easy sort of approach avoid sort of technique. So all of these techniques, we found that fast direct and indirect priming have been the most applicable with regard to sort of understanding how to improve the participant alignment with true consumer or shopper experiences.
Okay, so I'll ask the question again. Does this make sense? Is there any points of clarification that you would like to have at this point in this sort of webinar presentation today? So yes or no, does this make sense to everybody? Is it clear before we move in to discussing some applications? So I'm getting some yeses here. I haven't seen any no's yet. Any points of clarification here? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So let's move on because I think this is this last segment is going to talk about some ways to improve how we apply some of these neuromarketing techniques.
Yet, even these techniques have a shortcoming, and that is while these are techniques are designed so you can have implicit or explicit or prospective thinking, you never know whether the participant, what type of thinking they're actually using. So, for instance, if you're thinking of a shopper may, in a shopping situation, be walking down an aisle and see something that catches their eye, disrupts their normal habits, and you may pick that up. And so that sort of process could be utilizing initially habitual, sort of implicit thinking. But once they've been disrupted, suddenly they're moved into an explicit or even a prospective mode of thinking, where they're thinking about whether I'm going to buy this, considering weighing all the possibilities, or imagining how they might use this product at home. So the point is that if you can get information on knowing what kind of mode of thinking people are using, you get much deeper insights, much broader insights into exactly what is going on into the shopper's mind. So what we've developed is something that extends these implicit, explicit, these behavioral techniques, something called an implicit explicit test. And what it involves is a calibration step at the very front end of the study for every single participant engagement. And what we do is we develop through some questions and capturing the speed of those questions that should be implicit, we develop a cutoff time. For anything longer than that is actually going to be utilizing explicit thinking or prospective thinking. So anything shorter than that cutoff is certainly an implicit mode of thinking and response. So as a result of this invention, we can do a lot of things that we could not do prior. We can, first of all, get much deeper insights into what are the modes of thinking people are using in response. Second is we can get broader insights by developing survey logic that uses this new information to put people that are implicit thinkers into one sort of set of questions and those that are not into a different set of questions. We can provide better decisions by creating new behavioral KPIs or key performance indicators, new measures that you can use to make future decisions. And we can warehouse this information to create new custom syndicated services that could even align whole supply chains.
Oh, all right. So I assume now that there might be some questions about the implicit explicit test methodology, unless that makes perfect sense. So yes, no, does this make perfect sense at this point? And again, if you're just joining us, you can use the chat box here. And okay, so I've got one question. Could you explain again? So the implicit explicit test at the front end of every engagement. So whenever these things are done through a set of a questionnaire that is typically done online. So no matter whether someone's using a small screen like their smartphone or a large screen such as their desktop, when they respond, whatever that is, we actually measure how fast it is and calibrate at that moment what would be the cutoff time for someone being in an implicit mode of thinking, which is fast versus explicit or prospective. So that a cutoff time has tremendous amount of capabilities to be applied in research. So, okay. All right. So let's if there's no other questions here, let's move on to the final segment, and I'll give you some examples how we're applying these the implicit explicit test to into applications.
Whole supply chains. So let me give you some examples of applications where we are doing just these things. First of all, to create a cleaner world, we are applying fast direct techniques to measure which ingredients, as might be listed on the back end of a package, will result in shopper avoidance. And so this sort of methodology that I'm showing here on this slide, we've been able to build and build whole databases of hundreds of thousands of ingredients in the context of all sorts of foods and beverages, pet care products, supplements, which developers and marketers can alike use to understand how to design products. And this new KPI metric is also being used by a number of ingredient suppliers in the design of new, cleaner perceived ingredients, which can be incorporated into products and even utilized to show retailers what types of brands they should be putting on their shelves that are perceived to be cleaner. And as an example, this is the type of information we're getting. We're applying the implicit explicit test, calibration, where we know what modes that people are using, to develop indices that place greater weight on implicit responses, those more guttural, fast responses to which drive people's behaviors in terms of, I'm going to avoid this product because it has this ingredient in it. The second area is to create a healthier world. We're applying fast, direct techniques to understand what benefits would be most useful to consumers to deliver better claims and product design by knowing what benefits are associated with things such as vitality, or things such as what is healthy. And so we're finding all sorts of applications where when we prime people in moments of experiences, they can much more sort of tell us through this rapid technique of what is vitality or what is healthy mean in the context of this type of product. To create a happier world, we're applying indirect priming techniques to measure emotional profiles or emotional impact that participants have in response to products, in response to package designs, response to concepts, and even ideas. So, for example, the type of information we get by applying this implicit explicit method, we're able to place more weight on participants that are using implicit thinking to derive these sort of indices which can compare and contrast. Whether this product, such as these two plant-based burgers, which one is, how are they being different in terms of creating intrigue or happiness or whatever the emotional impact profile you're seeking. Now, in terms of driving survey logic, we found this calibration technique is ideal so that we can develop branches in surveys to determine, for instance, if someone has been disrupted by a message and moved into explicit thinking, then we can drill down into understanding why more rationally. But if it's more as an implicit sort of mode that they've reacted to, we utilize a different set of questions to tap into the subconscious, non-conscious sort of processes that are aligned with implicit thinking. These neuromarketing methods that we're applying here have led to the creation of a new solution for innovation for the food industry. Earlier this month, we publicly launched something called the CRAVES solution. CRAVES stand for is Clean Label Research through evolutions right into stores. And this is through a series of rapid iterative sprints for innovation that we have built in partnership with a company called Culinex, which is a culinary food product development firm, where we can actually rapidly, within 6 to 9 months, take you from idea all the way to being in store. And to learn about this, just Google CRAVES to get to a website. This partnership has also allowed us to develop an ecosystem of innovation companies that are aligning across the whole supply chain in the food industry. That is, we're able to utilize the same information so that we can go from ingredient supplier all the way to the storefront. So ingredient suppliers are able to understand which ingredients signal the benefits that shoppers and consumers are seeking, and brand owners are able to build in and utilize these types of ingredients for the purpose of creating cleaner, healthier, and foods to make you happier in your lives. And retailers are finding that the brands that align with that are the types of products that they want to put on their stores. So, in applying neuromarketing, we are aligning the whole supply chain, enabling innovation, enabling new products to come to the market faster and with greater success, because we are targeting what is the greater good. We're products that everybody is demanding: cleaner, healthier, and for a happier world. So, to close, I hope this talk has helped you today in both clarifying what is neuromarketing, what are some of the techniques that have been utilized that are showing to be most promising of value, and how we have actually taken these techniques and improved upon them through the implicit explicit test methodology. And so I hope that you will learn how to apply those, and so that you can, with us, become enablers of innovation to create a cleaner, healthier, happier world.
Okay, so with that, I'm at the point where we can get to some more questions. That last section had a lot of different content. Some of it was very specific, about how we utilize understanding of what modes people are using into research, and then also how we're creating these new metrics that are putting weight on perhaps implicit or explicit, depending on the metric. How we're using this to drive survey logic, as well as to create databases that you can access for lots of questions across the whole innovation and renovation processes that you have at your companies. We've found applications in a wide range of industries, certainly food, beverage, personal care, pet care, supplements industry, healthcare industry, and nutritional sort of supplements sort of industries, nutritional products industries, beauty care. We're doing a lot of work in beauty care industries. So there's a lot of applications in fragrance research, applications in flavor and ingredient research. So a lot of, and also applications at the store shelf in looking at people's reactions at point of sale. We've also applied these techniques for online types of scenarios to look at shopper behavior. So a lot of applications of these techniques. So I want to open up any other questions or points of clarification that you would like to have here before we close. Again, utilize the chat box here off the side that you have to have any questions that you would like me at this point to address. Okay, looking for any others? I know people are really busy, or maybe this is just perfectly clear. So is this something that people found as a helpful, valuable sort of webinar? Is this type of webinar content? Yes or no? Does this make sense to you? Okay. Well, I'm really excited to have a chance to have presented to you today. So I think people are pretty, I got, yes, this makes sense, and from a lot of people. So kind of the nodding ahead. So I thank you today for this opportunity. I want to click forward on one. So we do these webinars a couple times a month. The next two webinars are next week on a week from today, on the 19th of November, there's going to be a really exciting presentation we're going to be doing on white space discovery, the 3 dimensions of white space discovery. This is looking at technology, product, and behavioral white space, and how you identify at the confluence of these 3. It's going to be co-presented with a company called Zenova, and a gentleman, one of the vice presidents for Zenova, a gentleman named Matt Ferguson. Zenova is an open innovation platform company, and they have reaches for thousands of people around the globe that are inventors of various technologies. Second thing is a guy named Mark Crowell, who is the CEO for Culinex, which is a culinary product development firm that we work with, and they're going to bring perspective of product and culinary. And then I'll be co-presenting with those 2, bringing the perspective of consumer behavior and to understand how these 3 to come together at the fuzzy front end of the innovation process, hopefully to create clarity at the fuzzy front end, to create exciting ideas that address these white spaces. Then on December the 10th, Mark Crowell and I will co-present talking about craves, and I alluded to that earlier today. So how you sprint to success once you got a good idea that is targeting white space, how do you rapidly take that to market in 6 to 9 months? So anyways, looking forward to these upcoming webinars. Look for the announcements, and you can register, I believe, right now for these. So anyways, thank you today for your attention, and pass the word around if anybody wants to see this presentation. It'll be up here in a few minutes or an hour or so, so you can access it, and you can send this around. Other people can register and can view. All right, everyone have a great day. Bye.